Well, there you are. There you are. There you go. Here we are. Here it is, as you might say, in words of one syllable and stuff like that. My name's Dave, not Davey, not Mina, not anything like that. And tonight I'm joined by Kat, and we hope Sav, although we think she might be snoozing because she's a little bit poorly by in bed with both her feet in one sock, waiting for the doctor to come and rub her chest with Vic, but Vic's on holiday, so it might be a while. And Daz, and you'll see why it's called what it's called. But are you there, Kat? Come in.
I'm here. I'm here, and it's just as well I wasn't doing that intro, because I would have done the thing about Vic, but it nearly would have come out that she's in bed with Vic. No, she didn't know anybody called Vic, honestly.
All right. So we've got Kat and we've got Daz. Daz, are you there, Bonnie lad?
I am. This Vic sounds like a popular bloke, though.
Well, he gets rubbed on, and he's always rubbing somebody's chest, apparently.
Not like me, who just rubs people up the wrong way.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of the things. Right, I suppose we've actually got a lot to cover tonight, more than we thought we would have. There's some very, very interesting video and interview and stuff we want to talk about in terms of the Totally Wicked Challenge. We have just been informed that the Houses of Parliament have made a great step forward in the annals of vaping, for which I am acutely gratified and grateful and thankful and stuff like that. So what we decided to do, because Andy and Davey Davey's got no internet, Andy's not around, so tonight this is something a little bit different. We've hired a show together. Now we're going to do this. We're going to try and be posh, but you'll see what the name of the show is, and you'll understand why you might not understand a word we say. Here's the titles. 3, 2. How are you, young'un? So that is the says, that's how it goes the Naz. Is that right, and Cat Petlam?
That's very canny, very canny. I'm just laughing at VB there, going, it's Team Hayes talk hour.
Which it pretty much is. It's Team Hayes talk hour in Geordie. So, you know, we might, it'll be one of those nights. It's going to be quite uplifting tonight, I think. Do you not, Daz?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, with all the stuff going on that I've been reading about the day, it should be an interesting one for sure.
Yes, without any shadow of a doubt. Did I? Who did I say there? Blowing clouds.
That was cat pong with vapor.
That you say that was what confused me. Cat doesn't part with vapor. Do it again, Chris.
No, that's so weird.
I love these things with holes in, because look at.
Pardon.
You can play choo-choo trains. Good, isn't it?
Yeah, look at that.
Don't tell me you didn't sit and do that.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Didn't even know
now,
that you could.
Oh, she's got the kind of suck could get a golf ball through a bloody hose, man.
Where? At least mine are not noisy. I don't have noisy sucks.
Taking you to the land of Morocco.
I'm just not.
Dave, you are so noisy.
Who?
You.
It's not true.
Heavens, it is true.
Right, look, shall we talk about e-cigs?
Aye, if you like, I will talk about e-cigs.
Hang on a minute. Zero Vapes
Oh,
has typed into chat, "War Geordie's lost his pinker." You remember that? He's got the words wrong, like, and Gans, "War Geordie's lost his pinker. War Geordie's lost his pinker. War Geordie's lost his pinker. Doing the double ra."
aye, doing the double ra.
Doing the double ra. So there we go. Hey, right, look, E6.
E-cigs.
E6. Those of you that are recent converts, if you like, to the art of vaping, and I think there might be one or two in chat tonight, may not be aware of the Tobacco Products Directive version 2 that is due to be implemented and passed into law by May the 20th of 2016. Those of us that have been around a while are more than well aware of what's been going on with the TPD, and one company in particular has taken steps to give it some rate clatter, as in they have posed a legal challenge which will be going to the European Courts of Justice later on this year. That company is a company by the name of Totally Wicked, and there is a website which I've been tweeting all day, which is groaning under the strain of people lending their support, signing up to support the challenge, which I would urge everyone to do. However, one of my heroes, Clive Bates, went across to Totally Wicked to interview the managing director thereof, Fraser Cropper, with his legal beagle, I think is probably the word I'm going to use. And it's quite an interesting interview. I think we should probably show it now, shouldn't we, Chris?
Go for it.
So here it is. Here's the video, the 16 minutes of it. I want you to listen very carefully to it because there's an awful lot to lose. But if this challenge goes through, there's a hell of a lot to gain. So stoke your tank up with some fluid, hinny. Get your gob round it and enjoy what's coming up. How the Nas youngin'.
So, Fraser, let's start with the big question. Why are you actually bringing this case? I mean, there's a danger it could cause confusion. You know, it's not the perfect directive by any means, but some people would say it's a lot better than it could have been. What are you hoping to get from the challenge?
I think there's a number of sub-questions in that. Firstly, why we're bringing the challenge. Well, we decided when we first saw the draft TPD in 2012 that if that entered legislation, it would be just fundamentally wrong. Wrong for commercial reasons, of course, wrong ethically for what he was doing and what he should have done. And secondly, and probably just importantly for Paul, it is wrong legally. It's a wrong legal premise, and it's gone through a process which is atypical of what a legal process should be for European legislation. But from my perspective, the first elemental part of that response is really important to our business, which is I don't understand, and nor do our customers, or those who spend the time reading into this subject matter, understand why this regulation is cleaved to tobacco products regulation. It doesn't seem to have been based upon evidential fact and a data which establishes the risks which are trying to be mitigated, and it is fundamentally going to disrupt a marketplace which has been able to, without any public sector health, generate 2 million vapors in the UK, over 10 million vapors in Europe, who've taken their own information that's available, made their own decision, and concluded the vaping using a e-cigarette device, a tobacco product, is the right thing for them to do. And that's supported not only by that empirical evidence of the users, but also by a significant welter of academic research. And the TPD, when and if implemented, will fundamentally undermine, nay, destroy that.
So, but what gives you the right to do this? I mean, basically, I mean, you make some good points from your point of view as a business. It may not be what you want, but what gives you the right to try to overturn the will of the European Parliament, the European Commission, the 28 member states that have all agreed this through, you know, legitimate lawmaking process?
Well, see, that's a valid question. Every citizen or company has the right to expect that the democratic process is followed. If the democratic process was followed, we would not have had this regulation. There has been a circumvention and sometimes an absolute ignoring of the due process should have been followed. And indeed, the due process should have been informed by the necessary information to make sure the regulation and the output of that legislative process was fit for purpose. Neither of those two things have happened, and therefore it's a legitimate thing for us to do, which is to, A, as a citizen, and B, as a European legitimately trading company, to challenge a directive which is patently unacceptable and does not follow due process.
Paul, what's the lawyer's view on that question?
Yes, well, the directive may well have been passed into law by a majority of the MEPs, but that doesn't mean that the MEPs can pass whatever they like. There are important overriding principles that are set out in EU law, in the EU treaties, and any decision to pass new legislation has to be in accordance with those overriding principles, and we identified that the Tobacco Directive and Article 20 in particular don't meet those requirements.
So, given that given that the case is based on an infringement of the EU treaties, what are the main legal arguments you're going to put in front of the court about Article 20 to get them to overturn it?
Well, there are four main grounds to the legal challenge. The first one is that the provisions of Article 20 are disproportionate, and that means that they're too heavy. This is a sledgehammer to crack a nut, and they could have been dealt with in a less restrictive and less burdensome manner. Secondly, that they're discriminatory. They discriminate between tobacco cigarettes and electronic cigarettes, and they discriminate in favour of the tobacco products, which are the more harmful products. Thirdly, these measures could have been dealt with on a member state by member state basis. There's no requirement for these to be addressed on a pan-European basis. It could have been left to individual member states to deal with particular issues as they see fit. And fourthly, that the provisions infringe key treaty principles and key rights that Totally Wicked has. One of the restrictions will be a ban on advertising, and that will infringe key rights that Totally Wicked and other manufacturers have.
So who's going to hear the case, and who will be defending it, against this legal challenge that you're bringing?
Well, the case will be heard by a panel of judges in the European Court in Luxembourg. There will probably be a hearing in about a year's time. It may not happen until the back end of 2015. Before then, there will be an opportunity for Totally Wicked, for the European institutions, and any member states that take an interest in this challenge to put in written submissions, setting out their arguments one way or the other, whether it's in favour or against the provisions of Article 20. And those submissions will be filed in the early part of next year. Once we've seen those, then we'll understand what approach the EU institutions are going to take in resisting this challenge, because at the moment they've not played any part in the legal process so far, which has simply been a challenge issued against the Secretary of State in the UK. So we'll understand more the basis upon which they are asserting that the directive is lawful. There will then be an opportunity for the Advocate General in the European Court to give his legal opinion as to whether the provisions of Article 20 are lawful or not, and there will then be the hearing towards the back end of next year. So it will be quite a slow process over the next 12 months, but hopefully by the spring of next year we'll have a better understanding of the different arguments and which parties are seeking to intervene and support or resist Totally Wicked's arguments.
And talking of that, some people say that the Department of Health is supporting this case. Now, that doesn't sound right. What's the story?
They're not supporting the case. What they are essentially agreeing to is this being referred to the Luxembourg courts for a ruling as soon as possible, and they're going to leave it to the EU institutions to make the case. They're simply not going to participate in setting out the arguments, really.
And what do you think the arguments will be? I mean, I've read the Totally Wicked statement of facts and grounds. It seems very convincing to me. How are you anticipating they are going to defend their corner?
Well, it's hard to say because they've not really been part of this legal process so far. The process started off by challenging the Secretary of State's decision here in the UK. And until we get the submissions from the EU Commission in the new year, we won't really know how they're attacking it. They could go into great detail and set out all of the arguments with supporting evidence, or they may simply make very short legal submissions and leave it to the European Court. So we really don't know.
But I think also there's an important point beyond the core legal, which is we have not brought this case because there is some peculiarity in the legal process that we hope to win on. As far as I'm concerned, the arguments are simple and very compelling. And if they're simple and very compelling to me, and they're simple and very compelling to our legal team, and we are able to offer those to objective judges, then why will they not be simple and compelling to the legal team who are asked to make a decision on this particular matter? I think they're going to find it very difficult to make a cogent argument. If they try to frame their argument on due process has been followed, then I think they'll flounder. If they try to make an argument on the fact that this is justified by academic research, they'll flounder. Well,
of course, there was that letter from the scientists who wrote in making many of the criticisms of the directive, which you've drawn on heavily in the case.
Indeed, and there's been a lot of misrepresentation. It's actually been a very edifying process to be witness to. Lots of people aren't aware of just how many shenanigans there have been and how untypical of what they should expect from the democratic leadership. So I think when we get ourselves in front of a court, when we get the opportunity to have those very simple yet compelling and fully supported arguments, it's going to be exceptionally difficult for there to be a counter-argument that picks them up to pieces and undermines what is a very simple, compelling and well-argued argument.
There's a lot of interest in the case. I think there's a lot of people very glad that Totally Wicked have taken the initiative on this. People are asking, how can they help? How can they be involved? So is it possible for them to participate in the formal process? Can they write submissions or affidavits or provide evidence? Or is there some other way in which they can get involved? Let's start with the formal side of it, Paul.
Well, unfortunately, they can't participate in the legal process because the court rules limit that to the current parties, the member states, and the relevant EU institutions. Those are the only parties that can file formal written submissions. So there's no opportunity for other interested parties, members of the public, to make any submissions within the court process.
What about outside the court process and the sort of court of public opinion?
Well, the court of public opinion and the emotional court, I think we need to continue to do what we, the collective industry base, but more importantly the consumer base, did so remarkably well in 2013, which was bring to bear their passionate arguments and their rationality to this. And the more people who are informed of our legal case, the more people are informed of those basic tenets of our legal case, and the more people that recognise this is not just in the sole narrow commercial interest of our business, but actually there is a very strong moral touchstone, and there's a very strong basis for what we're doing that touches every single vapour and every single participant in this sector who wishes to see a sector that's allowed to be competitive, that's allowed to continue the innovation, and to deliver the products in that environment that customers need. So the more people who are aware, the greater the base of advocacy, the more difficult it's going to be, I believe, for the European Parliament to not listen to this in the way that they have to. They are legally bound to listen to this objectively, and the more people who are informed of those simple objective arguments, I think the more influence, pressure, call it what you will, be brought to bear, and the greater explicit responses and outputs which will need to be held account to. Yeah. So I think more people get involved, more people read the discussions, get involved in communicating with your MEPs, get involved in your communities who vape, and allow for those arguments to become really resonant with all who have to listen.
And what about the timetable? What's going to happen? I mean, when's this all going to really hit the news and hit the courts and be in front of the judges? Paul?
Well, the European Court will formally announce this reference in the next few weeks, and it will publish the questions that have been referred in the official journal of the European Union, which hopefully will happen before Christmas or very early in the new year. So that will generate some degree of interest across the whole of the European Union, and that really is the start of the court proceedings. Once that happens, and then the institutions or member states put in written submissions. So that should happen in the new year or in the spring. I think it will be the end of next year, the end of 2015, before we actually have a hearing in Luxembourg, and then the decision may take another 3 or 4 months. So it is going to get very close to the implementation date in May 2016 before this is finally resolved one way or the other. Obviously, we're doing all we can to try and expedite matters in the European Court and get this before the judges as soon as possible. But it is likely to be a close-run thing.
All right. Looking ahead, let's say we're at the beginning of 2016, the court issues a judgment, goes with your arguments. What should happen then? And because we've got a directive on the books that is then struck down, you know, a gap opens. What should happen next?
What should happen and what will happen? What should happen, I believe we roll back time until 2012 and 2013 and we start again. We recognise that the premise for the regulation for e-cigarettes should not be related to tobacco products, that they sell to the same customer base does not necessarily make the argument they are one and the same thing and therefore kin in relationship to regulation. So they need their own bespoke regulation. The academic body of evidence that now exists should be listened to and should be considered. There needs to be a fundamental understanding as to why regulation is being applied. What is it there to protect? Take rational consideration that are the information that supports that basic question and put together a regulatory set which protects consumers, informs consumers, and allows these products to have the legitimate space to be available to allow for smokers to have a legitimate choice apart from cigarettes and pharmaceutical nicotine replacement therapy, which is what has happened, which is now potentially being denied. So we start again.
Let's suppose you know, the institutions came back either at UK level or EU level and said, right, that's it then, we're going to regulate these things as medicines. I mean, what would happen next?
Well, interestingly, there have been a number of cases already in individual member state courts where the member states have ruled that the electronic cigarette product cannot be regulated as a medicine under existing medicinal regulations.
Fraser, would you challenge again?
Of course, we'd have to. It would be absolutely necessary for us to. It would be an extension of this ongoing case that we have with the European Court. So yes, we'd have to, and we would do.
You'll keep challenging until you get good regulation that's properly and lawfully grounded.
Absolutely. Properly regulated sector is what we strive for, that we try to do our best within currently, that our consumers and customers demand from us, and our politicians and regulators should also be demanding and delivering the legislation to deliver.
And Paul, I just want one final point, because often these cases sort of in the media and by some in the public health community, they get sort of seen as a tobacco industry plot to try and sabotage the entire directive. That's not what's going on here, is it?
No, this is a very focused legal challenge on Article 20, which relates to electronic cigarettes. We're not seeking to overturn the entirety of the Tobacco Products Directive, simply the annulment of Article 20, which will have such a devastating impact on the e-cigarette market and users of e-cigarettes.
I think a company leadership perspective, we're not a tobacco company. We are an independent private company. We can make decisions based upon things other than narrow commerciality. And this decision is something which is based upon something much more fundamental than narrow, totally wicked commercial reasons. It is based upon that premise that we mentioned and discussed previously, which is this is just wrong, it's immoral. And the leadership of this company, which I'm very proud of, has taken that position and put literally our money where our mouth is, which is we're going to take some action which this sector needs. First and foremost, as a consequence, our business will benefit, but everybody else will as well.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for those remarks. Very informative. I found that very useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Clive. Thank you.
So there you have it. That was Clive Bates speaking to Fraser Cropper at Totally Wicked, with the legal people on board as well. Now, there's one or two bits and bobs that have come up in chat which we'll cover after the adverts. Is that all right, Chris?
That's absolutely fine.
You cool with that, Daz?
Yeah, not a problem.
Excellent. Yeah, right. We'll take a quick blast of adverts, and when we come back, I'll cover what's being said in chat, run through dates and stuff like that, and also tell you what will disappear if Totally Wicked aren't successful. Back in 2, Ghost Down Nowhere. That's very nearly Geordie for Divan Nay West, so we'll be back in a tick.
Often imitated, never duplicated. Award-winning service and products from cloud9vaping.co.uk.
Vapers, do you love discovering new e-liquids? Tell Dripper the types of flavours you like and they'll send you 5 gourmet juices each month. Experience new and exclusive flavours, all with a money-back guarantee and free delivery anywhere in Europe. Dripper.co.uk.
Healthy Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and e-liquids. Proud sponsors of vaping entertainment on Vapor Trails TV.
What's in this e-cig cloud? Harmless water vapor, right? Pretty much, yes. Compared to a lit cigarette, it's much safer than smoke. But it contains nicotine, and nicotine on its own isn't toxic and doesn't cause cancer. If you're worried about switching to vapor, here are some facts. No tar, no smoke, no burnt tobacco. Cooking your evening meal produces more toxins than are found in exhaled vapor. Tobacco smoke contains toxins at very high levels, and vapor does not. And that vapor contains 6,000 times less carcinogens than cigarette smoke. Electronic cigarette vapor. There's nothing to be frightened of. The only dangerous electronic cigarette is a banned one.
And we're back in the room, as well we might be, because that's where we're supposed to be when we come back after the adverts. Chris, just before we go into what got said in chat, what did you make of that video?
What did I make of the video? I loved Clive's take on it, that he sat there doing the cross-examination, the devil's advocate role, the prosecuting attorney, if you like.
Yes, John not Matt said it was kind of strange watching Clive's playing devil's advocate.
Great job. He did a wonderful job of that, apart from the boots. But never mind. And apart from the building swaying or the camera swaying, whatever it was. I loved Fraser's responses. Very articulate, very to the point. Answered every question totally openly and honestly. I love what TW are doing. I can't say any other. And of course, the chappie that was there, who I gather was a lawyer of some sort. again, answered everything as best he could. So it was very impressive.
Yes, yes, indeed. Now, Morph RV asked, do TW have any actual dates yet? And no, there's nothing as yet written in stone, although since that video was recorded, because I believe that was done October, November last year time, I didn't actually check the date stamp on it, I perhaps should have done. The Department of Health has been in touch with the European Court of Justice to say that it actually would benefit everybody if the whole thing could be expedited, because the kind of timescale that they normally take would mean that judgment would happen around March, April time of 2016, and the whole lot's got to be implemented by May the 20th. However, if you go to the website that's carrying all of this, the link to which has already been dropped into chat and which will drop in again a few times before the end of the show, I've no doubt, you will find in the documentation there that there is kind of a stay of execution, that it's supposed to be put on hold, the whole thing, really, until it goes through the court. That's the Article 20 side of things, which is quite interesting, and I'm just wondering to myself how hard that's actually going to be applied in the UK, because that's where the challenge is arising from. What do you reckon, Chris? Do you think that's likely to happen, or what do you reckon? Or Daz, actually, Daz. Go on, Daz, because he's sitting there doing note. How he does.
I think it could be very promising, because there's nothing yet really being heard a lot of in regards to legislation yet in the UK. So it's still, to me, like very much an open book. And it's really good news to hear that the Department of Health has such a vested interest as well, and obviously it's been observed. And I would like to hope that, yes, that the UK would be in a position to kind of put a rein in on it until such time that the court has made a ruling.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Chris?
Well, absolutely. I agree with what Daz has said, and they can't. It would just be ridiculous for them to come with a conclusion to this in, as you say, March, April time. When the whole thing, to say yes, the TPD's got to be implemented in May 2016, it doesn't happen overnight. So the implementation and everything that they're ready to put out there is already well on its way. And we know this. So the sooner this happens, the better it's going to be. I mean, we're already seeing vendors sort of looking to change what they're doing. We're already seeing that. So many are now doing 10 ml of juice and things like that.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth.
I've got to say that's something I bitterly regret, I have to say, to see so many vendors. I mean, I know it's a commercial thing, I understand that, but even so, getting rid of all the 30 and 50 ml bottles and 100 ml bottles and God knows what in favour of these piddly little 10 ml things, seriously.
I can't be bothered with them.
It's really soul destroying when you see so many, and I speak from the bottom of my heart when I say this as well, but it's soul destroying when you see a lot of the big firms now who are getting ready for the TBD as if it's already being done and dusted and set in stone and everything, rather than the way that Totally Wicked's looking at it, in which they're looking at it from a complete consumer point of view, and all the benefits and everything that go along with it, and actually getting up off the backsides and doing something about it, which is amazing, absolutely amazing to see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't disagree with any of that. I mean, I think what TW's doing is fabulous, and I would urge everybody to get behind them completely, 100%. Get behind Totally Wicked, because the fact of the matter is, as Fraser said on the video, if this challenge is successful and it goes through, it means that Article 20 of the TPD either has to be completely recast and bespoke regulation looked at, or it's taken out of the TPD altogether, as I believe it should be, and a complete set of bespoke regulations in another directive is drawn up for e-cigs. Now, I know there are people out there that think, well, we don't need regulation. Actually, we do. Let's be absolutely right about it. We do need some form of regulation. What we don't need, though, is the kind of regulation that would outlaw everything I have along all of this shelf. Everything. It would all go. And I'm going to stick my neck out here, and I'll hear from both Daz and Chris when I've said this, whether they agree or not. I would go so far as to suggest that whatever you have in your hand at this minute would be outlawed by the TPD if it goes through successfully. Chris?
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely right. Everything will. And I don't like the thought of it. It's scary. It's absolutely scary because it's not an easy task for a new vapor to get their head around everything that's available. We know that. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
But they need to find what is right for them. And that choice will be taken away. And that's what is so unfair, because so many people will then go, I didn't like that. That's not good enough.
Yes.
That scares me.
Whip It Up 69 has said, e-grip? Yes, e-grip. Because it's not leak-proof filling, it's not tamper-proof as they have proposed they want. What they're talking about is a sealed system. The closest to which, at the moment, is the Vipe E-Pen. That is as tamper-proof as you're going to get, and it's not refillable officially, so therefore it doesn't need this leak-proof refilling mechanism. But if you look at sub-tanks, if you look at any of the Aspire-based or any of the bottom coil clearomizers, any of the kind of stuff that the majority of us have on top of our battery-typey devicey thingies, all of those do not possess what I suspect the EU would call leak-proof filling mechanisms, as in you can expose yourself to juice. It's all but impossible to make a leak-proof system, frankly. It would take everything you know and love off the market, and that's why Totally Wicked is our best hope at this moment in time, I think. And I would urge everybody to do exactly what Fraser said. Get in touch with your MEP, get in touch with your MP, because the defendant in this case is the Secretary of State for Health. I'm not going to say his name because I consistently can't pronounce it correctly. I use an awful lot of k here, and you know what I'm saying. And the more MPs bring pressure to bear upon the Secretary of State for Health, the less likely it is that he'll stand up in court and make a good case against, well, he can't make a good case against the challenge because there isn't one, frankly. By all stretch of the imagination, by every sense, it should be successful. Wouldn't you agree, Chris?
I totally agree with you. I mean, I'm just looking at what chat's got to say in here. And B. Pinker Evans says, defo to kill vaping. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
They want it banned, stopped, gone.
Max Strummer said, DD, why the hell haven't other major players got involved? I'm going to say your guess is as good as mine, but it kind of, what I just said about 10ml bottles, and this is going to upset people and lose me some friends, but what the hell, I don't care. The fact of the matter is there are too many people out there, some big players, who are hell-bent on trying to achieve compliance with a set of bits and bobs that they don't actually know what they're going to be. They are trying to be TPD compliant instead of fighting it with every last breath they have.
If I may add to that as well, and I've also heard on top of what you've just said as well, Dave, is that these so-called players as well have also went as far to say that when the TPD is implemented, they are going to be the only ones left around on the high street, that none of these other so-called shops that you see and hear of are going to no longer be in existence, which puts my back right up. Really, really does put my back right up, because they forget what vaping's all about. It's not about money, it's not about competition, it's not about this, it's about saving lives at the end of the day. That's what I got in it for. It's what I believed, it's what I still believe, and that's what it's all about. And it really gets my back up when I hear it.
Actually, Daz, reading chat, I think you're not the only one whose back's been got up. DJ Reptile UK says, RTW, the only firm can actually afford to fight. No, they're not. They're not the only firm that can actually afford to fight. There are some bloody big organisations, some bloody big companies that everybody in chat would be very happy to be managing director of, to do with e-cigs in the UK. And they're not all cigarette companies either. And to me, I don't know, you know, I mean, I've always been told, my dad always told us, my granddad always told us, the best way to stand up to a bully is to smack the bastard in the nose. And unfortunately, what they're doing is handing their bloody dinner money over, I think. They need to get off their backsides, grow a spine, and actually stand up to these bullies in the EU and the bullies in America and the bullies everywhere else. I'm sorry, I'm going to rant. Kat?
Well, can I join you?
Go on.
Because the way I look at it, these companies that are sitting back on their arses and just saying, right, I'll do everything, get everything ready for the TPD, all they're interested in is the revenue, the cash, the money that's coming in. They couldn't give a shit about the lives out there, the passion that the vapors have. They couldn't give a shit about that. It's all about... Sorry, I'm swearing as well now.
I wish you'd stop sitting on the fence. Say what you really mean.
All about bloody revenue and money. And I, for one, am not having anything to do with those people.
Yeah.
When I started vaping, same when you did, it was all about the passion. And there were vendors out there that were pure passion. That if somebody couldn't afford an e-cig, they'd damn well donate it, you know? And there are still vendors around like that. Pardon?
Yes, pay it forward. They pay it forward. And there were vendors at the time, we were paying, as just for folks that don't know what pay it forward was, and vendors were doing this. Lots and lots of vendors were doing this. As you got a piece of kit, it doesn't matter what it was. It could have been a 901, it could have been an 801, it could have been a 510, could have been anything. As you moved on to something else, the kit that you weren't using, you paid it forward. You gave it to somebody new so that they could go a little bit further. And vendors were doing this. As they were deprecating stock, they would be paying it forward at meets, little local meets and stuff like that. I well remember Daz from Safer Cigs doing it. And Toby, loads and loads of people like that were turning up to meets and going, I'm not selling these anymore because, you know, there's better, but if you want it, there you go, if you want to start and try something else. And what I'm seeing now, and it really does piss me off, I've got to say, is vendors stopping 30 mils, stopping 50 mils, and only flogging 10 mils.
And only sell one setup. That's the other thing that gets me. You know, you're seeing these vendors selling one particular setup, and they're just trying to treat every single vapor the same. They put every vapor under one category. It's not about the range. Like you said before, it's about the revenue. And, you know, it really does annoy me, because how many times have we said in previous shows that not every vapor is the same? You know, they might have an identical setup, but one's probably got a different arm of a coil, or one's probably got a different flavour, or whatever. And it's really not fair that they try and put all the people in the same boat and think that that's going to be acceptable, because it's not. It's not acceptable, and it's really about time that these people damn well start to listen, because it's them at the end of the day who's going to lose out.
Well, can I just say, when we came back on air after the ads, I was probably heard that I was typing away during the ads. Right? They probably heard me clattering because I forgot to mute my mic. Now I'm going to tell you what I was typing, right? I was responding to somebody that had asked for details about advertising with Vapor Trails TV. And I thought, oh, damn, I was meant to do that this morning. I'll do it now. And I'll just read you what I've said. Firstly, thank you for your interest. Advertising revenue is used to cover the costs of broadcasting and to supply revenue for the advocacy work VTTV embarks upon. No one is paid. Now, do you know why that is? Because we've got a passion for what we do. We're not paid to sit here and talk to you every night, but we do it because the passion is there. We've benefited from e-cigs, not financially, not with getting free produce or anything like that. We've benefited in ourselves. We feel so much better for it, and we want to share that with other people. And Daz, can I have a little rant about something we were talking about earlier?
Yes.
Please, can I ask the vapors out there to stop using descriptions like stinky? Please? When I used lit cigarettes, I never said that another smoker was any different to me. I never called them stinkies. They were what I used. And now that I use an e-cigarette, I'm not going to down a smoker. Not ever.
No.
Please stop using that term and others like that. I absolutely hate it.
It's crazy. Thank you. Yeah, it is. I mean, just on the back of that, because at the end of the day, we don't use them anymore, and because other people do, does not make us any better or any worse than that person. If they want to go and smoke, that's their choice. It was your choice to come off it, but it's their choice that they want. If it doesn't matter. I'm saying the comment from Leanna Lawless, and she says, because smoke smells. It doesn't matter. If you don't like it, then you don't have to be around them, but that's your choice, but it's their choice to smoke.
Smoke used to smell when you smoked.
Exactly.
It did when I smoked. And I never called myself a stinky or let's have another stinky. Do you want a stinky? Anybody? No.
No. Needs to stop.
Do you want a stinky? No. Do you want a tab? You know,
the point about all of this, and this was actually shown up in a piece of video that Dave showed on Sunday night when you had the history professor tripping himself up and reading the wrong bits off his script at the wrong time. I thought, I could be wrong, of course, but he used the word destigmatize smoking. He meant renormalize, but he actually told the truth, unbeknown to his little bit self. And the bottom line on it is, smokers, truth be told, and vapors by association, are being stigmatized. There are people out there trying to stigmatize not the act, but the person. And the fact of the matter is, every time you use a phrase like a stinky, who knows who you're referring to? Because I know there are certain people in the ants establishment, as it were, if they use the word stinky, they're talking about the person and not the act. And it's let's not go there, folks. Let's not denigrate who we were, because with very, very, very few exceptions, we all smoked. And I would hate that. Well, there's not many people would walk up to me in a bar and say something like that to my face, because they might well end up flat on their backs and enjoying hospital food.
Exactly. I mean, the smoker of today is the vapor of tomorrow, and well, that's exactly what right. Think.
The other, I want to make one other request before we go into the adverts as well, and I've already seen in chat. Look, I know there were issues with Totally Wicked going back 3 years or so. It was one man. Please don't keep dragging that up. It needs to die the death. It needs to go. It's water under the bridge. And look, I've spoken to Fraser an awful lot. I've spoken to a few of the people over at Totally Wicked. They are only concerned about making sure that the TPD goes away. Please don't drag old wounds up. It's just not needed. And I think now's a good time to take the adverts, because when we come back, we've got good news about Parliament. Is that all right, Chris?
That's fine.
You can tell where the boss is. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. I'll do it in proper Geordie, right? This is proper Geordie. I'm going for a slot. I'll see you in a minute. Hello.
RY4 Radio.
Joytech UK are proud sponsors of VaporTrails.tv.
And we are back in the room. He said, not noticing that we were actually back in the room, but here we are, here we are. What was I going to say? Chris, what was I going to say?
I don't know what you were going to say, but I'm just laughing at people calling them coffin nails now. I used to call them coffin nails.
I never heard them being called coffin nails.
Yeah, I used to call them coffin nails quite a lot. That was always a good name for them.
Daz, you're so young.
We've had one or two. Graham Gords especially has said, you know, I'll back them up, but I won't pass money over the counter at all. That's fine.
That's
because
cool.
Everybody's got their own favourite supplier anyway. Nobody's asking you to do that. This is a different kind of support. This is support to get this TPD, Article 20, isn't it?
Yep.
Chucked. We want it out.
Flung.
Right? We don't use tobacco. There is no tobacco product. We use nicotine, yes, but there's already legislation in place as far as nicotine's concerned. But, you know, we'll look at the whole thing again. The whole TPD needs to be looked at again. And that's what we're fighting for. That's what everybody's fighting for.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that one.
And just so everybody knows. Thank you very much. Shall I use your Sunday in it? No, thanks, Chris. Yeah, the fact of the matter is, this fight upon which we have embarked, do not expect it to be over before 2020. It's a 10-year fight, this one. It's going to be a long one, but it's definitely worth doing. And a step forward was made today. Now, this happened so late in the day that I really have not had a chance to get this sorted out and get it on screen because I'm not clever that way. I'm just going to read it as you do. It says, House of Commons officials have changed the rules to allow MPs to puff on e-cigarettes in Parliament. This is, where is it? In BuzzFeed. They've got it first. Although the devices are banned in many British offices and public spaces, lobbying from MPs and researchers means the country's politicians will soon be able to puff on e-cigarettes within Parliament, BuzzFeed News has learned. This is despite the World Health Organization recommending a complete ban on the use of the devices indoors. I have a counting lesson for the World Health Organization. 1, 2. The news is a big boost for the booming vaping industry, which is worth billions of pounds and has been lobbying hard against regulation. It's also likely to be welcomed by pro-vaping activists who espouse the nicotine-heavy alternative to tobacco. Hell yes! But vaping politicians and their staff will be limited to just 3 areas. Part of the Portcullis House building, which is actually, it's very busy over there, their own offices, and Strangers, the main pub for MPs. The new guidelines were set out in the formal minutes of the Commons Administration Committee. I shall read in my best parliamentary voice. Update on the use of electronic cigarettes, e-cigarettes, on the parliamentary estate. Andrew Walker, Director General HR and Change, and Paul Mann, Pay and HR Policy Manager, briefed the committee in private. Resolved that the committee supports the management board's policy guidance for staff of the House and subject to further review. In addition, advised Mr. Speaker that the use of e-cigarettes on the parliamentary estate currently should be limited to the Strangers Bar, the central part of Portcullis House atrium, excluding enclosed surrounding areas, and members and members' staff offices at the discretion of occupants, subject to further review. So basically, what they've done is they've shown an example for every other company in the UK. If it's all right in Parliament, it's all right where you work and where you employ people. Daz, what do you make of that?
I'm sorry, I could hear Cat while you were talking this, as he sounded more like Kenneth Williams in Parliamentary, but never mind. I'm seeing nout. I am seeing nothing. Oh, my God. But on a separate note, it's all good, isn't it? However, one of the things that I wanted, which you, I'll let you explain because you explained to me so well. Somebody put a comment in and said, but the smoke in Parliament. Can you explain what you knew about that? Because I knew it was a comment that was going to come up and chat about it.
Well, as I understand it, the only place left, or the only place that was left where MPs could smoke, and I'm sure I remember seeing the Chancellor with a cigar and a glass of whiskey delivering the budget, but it must have been a long time ago. Mm-hmm. So the only place left, as I understand it, and I really do need to be corrected if I'm wrong, was the Strangers Bar, but I understood that had been knocked on the head in the relatively recent past, a couple or 3 years ago, and I suspect that was as a result of the Standing Committee on Health, or the APPG on Health. Mm. Certainly when we went down for the launch of the APPG, the All-Party Parliamentary Group, that is, on e-cigs, we were in, I don't know what it's properly called, but it's right beside the river. The big tent, marquee. We're in the marquee beside the river, and there was no problem with us vaping in there. They've kind of just basically formalised it and said, yes, look, here are rooms where you can take your e-cig, i.e. everybody's office, Strangers Bar, and in the middle of Portcullis House, which is actually a very pleasant place to go and sit and have a coffee and a vape. Great idea. Chris, your take?
I find it incredibly good that they can't now turn around and justify, the rules that they're implementing or considering implementing on us. If they're going to be allowed to vape, bloody great.
Yeah.
And what I found so heartening about that particular piece was that it said many MPs were
Yes.
congregating outside to smoke. Many. So to me, that means there must be a fair few of them.
So would you say, given that what you've just said, do you not think that's even more reason for people to be writing to their MPs, because e-cigs are much, much more known, even when we're first fighting it, and that was, what, 2 years ago?
Well, with this move, it's brought it to the attention of every MP.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yes.
that is the beauty of this, whether they're for it or not, whether they are a smoker or not. Because personally, now this is my opinion, in the Palace of Westminster, if I was in charge, I would not allow them to smoke anywhere in that building because of what it is and the fact that it's a heritage building. And it's beautiful, and you don't want to see scaffolding up every 3 years to decorate and get rid of all the nicotine. I would not be happy if they did that. So I would stop them smoking, but we know that vapor doesn't have the same problems. Yeah, you can get some VG on glass and stuff like that, but it doesn't discolour things. So it's all positive from that point of view. And as far as do I find it encouraging? Good God, yeah, it's more than encouraging. It's bloody exciting. What more can I say? Apart from the fact that we've gone over time again.
Well, I don't care, because I think this is worth talking about, frankly.
It
I don't
is worth
mind.
talking about.
The question's being asked, do we think that might encourage Wales? Do you know something? I think Drakeford's going to have a hell of a job on his hands to turn around and try and implement an indoor smoking ban throughout the UK when Parliament has specifically allowed it and done it in a way that it's going to hit headlines here, there and everywhere. I think it's one of the most positive moves we've seen in a donkey's age. And can you just imagine him standing up there going, you know what they do? It's like this, isn't it? We've got to stop it now. We've got to stop people like smoking everywhere indoors because the precedent has been set by Parliament. Oh, shit. They're letting the MPs vape in it. Oh, hell, what we going to do now, boy? Oh, it'll be good. Be great.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of comments that I've seen in chat recently as well that I think need bringing up, because some people aren't maybe as welcoming of the news. I'm seeing some comments like, but it's always one rule for them and another for us, or do as I say and not as I do. Well, if you feel like that, then here's what you need to do. You need to write to your MP and address those feelings, because let's remember, when the TPD first came out, they were going to medicinalise it, and it was us who wrote to our MPs and got that turned around and with Article 20, and that's the way that the current stance is. So if you feel that strongly, then you need to be writing. That's even more reason for you need to be writing to your MP and addressing your concerns, you know, and even putting that in of how you feel about it so that you can meet up with them and tell them how you feel.
Exactly right, Daz. You are so right in what you say. Look, the fact of the matter is, they work for you. That's you elect them, or your constituency elects them. You may not have voted for the one that you've got, but you have every right to go and knock on their door and say, excuse me, these are my thoughts, these are my wishes, I would like you to carry them out. And they are duty bound to do it. And yes, in some cases you might have to bat your head against a brick wall until you can get in to see them, but it is worthwhile doing. And especially that now that the whole they're being allowed to vape, and this is being made official, and it'll be spoken of in the House of Commons, it'll be spoken of in the House of Lords, it will get on telly, as it always does on the Parliament channel on Sky, if you've got it, or wherever, you know, other parliamentary channels I'm sure are available. I just don't know where. It's got to be a positive move, because then you can turn round if you are in a restrictive company and say to your bosses, well, this is what they've done in Parliament, this is what the MPs are doing, this is probably what you should be doing. And sometime later in the week, the health and safety executives' briefings on all of this kind of thing will get brought up as well. So that is all good. It's all good. In fact, it's one of the most positive moves that we've seen this year. I know we're not very far into it. We're only in the second month, but even so, I think it's good. Chris, do you want to say anything?
I'm just noticing people are questioning who to write to. I've said MPs and MEPs, both. It's important, and quote the document. I've put the link in. There are some wonderful bits in there you can quote, because this is the thing. You can say there's one rule for us and one rule for them, but not when they publicise things. Then it's up to us to take the facts from that and quote it back at them.
Yes.
You know? So do that. Never mind diplomatic immunity. They haven't got any anymore. We're going to make sure of that, Bruni.
Be sure of one thing. There is nothing more deadly than your enemy's sword. Get it in your hand and use it.
Yes. Yes. I thought you were bringing up the Vikings again there for a minute.
She was getting all excited.
Hi.
She's too easily excited by Vikings. It's actually, you do realise that all around the northeast, Chris, there are places you can go and be thrilled to bits. They're called Viking men's clubs. I think that's how it's said.
Is that how they got their name, is it?
Aye.
Aye.
Something along those lines. No, I think it's fabulous. Now, somebody did bring up in chat the 2 squares in Bristol where they've got this voluntary ban. Let me tell you what I would like to see happening down in Bristol. I would love to see, at a date yet to be specified, as many vapers and smokers as possible going down and completely bloody ignoring it. Just putting up a vape and smoke fug that says, screw you, because I think that's what needs to be done. It's just an invasion of everybody's civil liberty for no reason other than somebody somewhere doesn't like it. And I've been told by Chris I'm not allowed to tell you the story of the governor's wife.
No. No, you're not.
But it's perfectly true.
But you are right. That is a damn good idea, actually. And that may be something worthwhile thinking about and getting something organised.
Yes.
I do like that idea.
They're talking about as well how to write letters to your MP. Write a letter to your MP. Use your words. Don't the boilerplate thing, as we know, as we've seen fairly recently, actually, the using a template letter or a boilerplate letter, they will do their best to ignore it and count it as one response. You're always better using your own words. And there is a rule of thumb. 50,000 tweets is equal to 10 emails, but one visit to your MP is worth 1,000 emails. It's a fact. And a handwritten letter before you visit your MP or MEP is fantastically worthwhile. If you get in front of your MP or MEP, AM, MSP, I forget what it's called in Ireland and I do apologise, you get in front of those and put your thoughts forward, that carries so much weight. And do you know why? It's because most people can't be asked to get off their backsides and out of the front of the telly and go and talk to them. So the ones that do, the MPs and AMs and MSPs and everybody else think, have really got something worthwhile to say. I've seen it in action. I know it works. So give it some consideration.
Can I add one last thing as well, just before we wrap up? I think in light as well that there's a general election coming up, that, you know, it's probably going to hold a lot more power as well, because MPs are going to be bending over backwards to be working with the public. That's what they're out and about at the minute doing. So I would say even more so now is right up until when's the general election? May, June?
May the 5th.
May.
So any time up until now, from now up until then, MPs are really going to be getting in with the public. So yeah, there's no better time than now to be writing to them. Definitely.
And if any of them knock on your door asking for your vote, make sure you tell them about this.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yes, without a shadow of a doubt. They
It is.
really want to talk to you at the minute. So make your voice heard. I would. I think that's probably a good point to draw this to a close because we are 10 minutes over. I do apologise to anybody who's sitting with their legs crossed because they're used to getting away at a minute past 10. I'm not. I couldn't give a monkeys. I really couldn't. This has been Geordie's show, and we hope you've enjoyed it. Say it to them in Patois, Daz. Come on.
In Patois?
Patois. Geordie Patois. Pitmatic, son.
What am I saying in Geordie?
That we've enjoyed spending the last hour with them and we hope they'll come back again. How?
Lads and lasses, hinnies and pets, we've had a good time now. It's been nice seeing you all. Make sure that you are here tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to have another show. Yes, what we got on tomorrow, Kat?
What we got on tomorrow? Tuesday's tomorrow. It's Vapor Scene Man.
Vapor Scene Man with Gary and Mark, isn't it?
It'll be that tight lad, Mark Warlight, you know, he's a tyke.
Aye, the tyke.
Tyke.
Uncle the tyke. And Gary from Doonsooth.
Aye.
Aye. In the
Chris, last words for our audience, Pet Lamb?
Last words for our audience. Get in there and stick it into them, is my words. Get in the battle, right? And then we'll sort something out for Bristol as well. Get in there, lads.
Why, certainly. Nay bother at all. From the three of we here, what's been sat gobbing on for the last hour, I've only got one thing to say to you all. Vape on, vape hard, and divin let the bastards grind you down. Till we see you next time from all the way here. Gan canny hinny, say they're on the flip side, young and who. Ta-ra.
Ta-ra.
Ta-ra.